Welcome back to Stories Behind the Walls, the podcast where we shine light on the hidden truths, the uncomfortable stories, and the realities most people would rather ignore. I'm your host, Annabelle. Today we're shifting gears a little. We're moving over to Maryland. I know this happened back in 2024, but let's be honest, just because it's not on the front page anymore doesn't mean it's not important. Because what happened in Ridgely, Maryland is something that still needs to be talked about. Why? Because it's a perfect example of the kind of corruption that too often goes unchecked in small towns and the kind of leadership it takes to actually do something about it. So let's just get right into it. Imagine living in a small town trusting that your local police department is there to serve you, to protect you. Now imagine finding out that the same people who were supposed to uphold the law were actually the ones breaking it. This is exactly what happened in Ridgely, Maryland. Corruption so pervasive, so blatant, that the entire police department had to be shut down. Yes, you heard that right. Not just a few bad apples, not just a couple of rogue officers. The entire department was disbanded. Now think about how rare that is. How often do you see a town government actually step in and say enough is enough? Because let's be honest, too often these problems get swept under the rug, they get ignored, the community is told to look the other way, or they're gaslighting into thinking it's not as bad as it seems. But in Caroline County, Maryland, they didn't do that. They didn't ignore it. They didn't excuse it. They shut the whole department down. And for that, I want to give some genuine kudos to the Caroline County Commissioner and those local leaders who made that call, because that's not easy. It's not politically safe. You're guaranteed to make enemies. You're guaranteed to have people calling you anti-police or saying you're overreacting or undermining public safety. But at the end of the day, public safety depends on trust. And if your local police department is corrupt, that trust is already broken. You can't just slap a fresh coat of paint on that and pretend it's fixed. Let's talk about what that says about accountability, because this is Stories Behind the Walls. And we're always going to look at the bigger picture. What happened in Ridgely isn't just one small town. It's about a pattern. It's about the reality that corruption can take root anywhere, even in the institutions meant to enforce the law. And it's about what it actually takes to fix it. Because too often when we talk about police reform or accountability in government, it's all talk. It's committees, it's press conferences, it's promises to look into it or improve training. But real accountability means being willing to take drastic action when the situation demands it. It means being willing to shut it all down if that's what it takes to protect the public. And let's be real. How many other places do you think are out there right now with similar problems? How many departments in small towns across America have the same kind of corruption? Where it's the good old boys network, where people look the other way, where those with power protect each other, where the community is afraid to speak up because they don't think anyone will listen, or worse, they think they'll pay a price for telling the truth. And this is exactly why this story matters. Because what they did in Caroline County is the exception, not the rule. But it should be the rule. It should be a standard that when you find corruption in law enforcement, you clean house. You don't protect the badge. You protect the people the badge is supposed to serve. I want you to think about this too. What do people say when you talk about defunding or disbanding police departments? They say you're crazy. They say you're going to unleash chaos. They say the community will be unsafe. But let's be honest here. If your local police department is corrupt, you're already unsafe. There is no public safety without public trust. And originally they realized that. They knew you can't fix something that rotten by just firing one or two people and pretending everything is okay. So they disbanded the department. They brought in the sheriff's office to take over law enforcement duties because the people deserved better. They deserved accountability. Now, let me say this clearly. This podcast is not anti-police. I have deep respect for good officers who do their jobs with integrity, who treat people fairly, and who understand that the badge is a responsibility, not a license to abuse power. But real respect for law enforcement also means demanding accountability when they break the law. You can't have it both ways. You can't claim to support the rule of law and then turn a blind eye when people enforcing it are the ones violating it. And that's why this matters. That's why we can't just let this story fade away because it happened in 2024. Because unless people keep talking about it, unless we learn from it, it's going to keep happening. So I want to say it again. Kudos to Caroline County. Kudos to the commissioner who made that call, because that took courage. It took leadership. It took understanding that protecting the public sometimes means confronting uncomfortable truths. And it took realizing that business as usual wasn't going to cut it. That's the kind of leadership we need everywhere, not just in Maryland, but in every state, every county, every city. Because the truth is, corruption thrives in silence. It thrives when people are too polite to speak up, too scared, too comfortable. But when people demand answers, when they file public record requests, when they show up at meetings, when they vote, when they refuse to let it go, that's when change happens. Look, the system only works if we hold it accountable. That's true of the prison system we talk about so much on the show. It's true of law enforcement. It's true of government at every level. We're the ones funding it. We're the ones living with the consequences when it fails. And it's our responsibility to make sure it serves us, all of us. Not just the powerful, not just the insiders, not just those with the right connections, all of us. So I want to thank you for listening to Stories Behind the Walls today. If you take one thing away from this episode, let it be this. Accountability is not optional. It is essential. And when you see corruption, speak up. When you see wrongdoing, call it out. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it is messy. Because that's how change happens. If you found this episode valuable, please share it. Talk about it. Don't let these stories stay buried. I'm Annabelle, and this has been Stories Behind the Walls. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and never stop demanding justice.